And okie dokie, let's go ahead and get started. We, as chair, I totally own up to the fact that I did not ask for enough time for this meeting. So we're on a strict schedule today. Martin, do you want me to run through the introductory slides? Okay. So if you are here at this point in time in the meeting, you are probably very familiar with the new note well. As they say, please note the note well. It does give a lot of guidance as to how we conduct business, how we keep it legal, how we treat each other, all sorts of important things to make sure that we have a full collaborative process for everyone to participate. If you're in person, as I mentioned, please sign into the session via the data tracker. You probably saw a QR code in the session. Use Meet Echo, the client, that will let you join the mic queue, let you actually raise hands, that kind of thing. That's how we will mind the queue. And if you're a remote, of which there are many of you, please make sure that your audio and video are muted unless you are chairing or presenting, and please use a headset if at all possible. Okay, do we have volunteers for Scribe today? This is the awkward part of the meeting. Eckerbot will take notes for us, and I'll definitely commit to double checking those notes if we're going to do any kind of automation on that. Good enough. Moving on. Okay, got a bunch of things on the agenda. As I mentioned, we have several documents under discussion, and I think we have people ready, willing, and able to talk about those. And we've got a couple things for new work. We'll want to spend some time on those as well. If there's time, which I'm not actually anticipating, we might actually talk a little bit about the working group charter. Speaking of which, why would we talk about the working group charter? What is SPICE? I think most people here are familiar with it. Hi, Rohan. What's up?
Hi. I wanted a charter bash just to say it would be nice if we can finish the working group items. Like, I'd try to go as quickly as possible, but like basically maybe we might bleed over a little bit longer. So.
Okay. Well, for those of you who aren't sure what the charter conversation is going to be about, I added that to this particular slide. So our charter says that we are basically analyzing the new IETF tech on digital credentials and presentation, specifically how to facilitate fixing any gaps in the systems and developing some digital credential profiles that support various use cases. However, we found that that doesn't necessarily cover all the things that we've been trying to do. And so there's a suggestion on the mailing list for a slight addition to the charter. If you haven't seen that, please do check Martin's message to the list a couple days ago. That's what's under discussion, or will be under discussion. If we don't have time for it today, please provide your feedback to the list because we need that.
Yep, and we'll run that for a little while and then have a discussion with the ADs about what to do with the chartering. Obviously, rechartering takes IETF consensus, so we'll have to. That will take some time, but we have documents kind of blocked on this one.
Poll. Do you want to take a
Okay.
So Heather, Ron's just suggesting that we take a quick straw man poll to see whether or not things are working. Does that make sense?
If things are working, what things? Which things?
I know in terms of whether people have read this and think that it's a direction that we should be taking. I don't know. It would be helpful from my perspective.
Okay. Happy to do that. Are you going to set up the poll or am I?
Just did.
Awesome sauce. Okay. Please take a moment. Folks in the room as well as people attending remotely. What you thinking? I know we have about 37 people currently attending, so I'm looking forward to a lot more responses than what we have so far.
So as Heather said, we don't really have time to discuss this time around. I think we have some chartered work we'd like to get done. But those people who have indicated no, please take that discussion to the list and let us know. We can't proceed if we don't understand what the concerns are. So let us know what they are.
Okay. Should we go ahead and close the poll? Great. There we go. Bunch of you said yes, bunch of you said don't care, and several of you, 3 of you said no. As Martin said, please do take that to the list. Okay. We are very much interested in the security and privacy of everything we're working on, and we had special considerations around confidential computing, remote attestation, trusted execution environments, HSMs, and digital credentials, and the usual redaction, linkability, and selective disclosure. There are several other working groups that are doing things that are, either would be relevant to us, or we might be relevant to them. If you're not already aware of or participating in any of these groups, you might want to check them out. We certainly try and not conflict with them at any meetings, because I think a lot of people are cross-pollinating, and that's a very good thing. What is definitely out of scope, has been out of scope, is general key discovery. And please don't roll your own crypto. It's a bad idea. So no cryptographic primitives are not in scope for us. With that, you know how to get to the mailing list, I hope. spice@ietf.org. We have a GitHub repository. And of course, we have a little website that we blatantly borrowed the formatting from the Whimsy working group. And all of that's available to make things a little bit easier to read. And with that, that is the chair's slides. Stop slides. Brilliant. Let's move straight on to, I think this is Ron.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to see the.
Yep.
I want to see the thingy.
While
Okay.
Roman is trying to find his thingy, I was late in accessing the hands tool. Sorry for that. This is Hank. Hi. You had an out of scope definition, which is in the charter. I like that. Are DIDs included in that? Because if you squint very hard at a DID, it's a key discovery mechanism, because it's a certificate and certificates of keys, and you could say it's that. Yeah, I know, Roman, but I was just late, and I was asking a question on the slide deck.
Yeah. Yeah. Time. Unfortunately, this is a very interesting discussion, and probably best taken to the list. It's a great question, but we really are on time today.
Okay, sure. Why not?
Okay. All right. I'm going to talk about SDCOT. Heather, do you have control? Next slide, please.
I can.
Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So since last ITF, we closed 45 issues and merged 30 PRs and published 2 versions of the document. Next slide, please. Here is a list of issues and PRs that we closed between 05, which was published right before IETF 124, and 06. Items that had a normative change are in bold. I'm going to talk about the ones that were substantive in a sec. Next slide, please.
I can give you control if you want.
Okay. So, whoopsie. Like the ones that I was, yeah, perfect. Okay. And then between 06 and 07, we have these and these. So yeah, we've been busy. Thank you, Martin, both not sarcastically and sarcastically for all the work. So the normative changes, we added in 06, we had a decoy digest, and we added a to be decoy tag, which would allow you during pre-issuance to request a decoy. We updated to use IANA registered values. We changed the CDDL to be more precise and only allow things in maps and in the claim sets that are legal in a COT, or that we've specifically said are legal in an SD COT where we've added additional tags. Dates are now limited, so you can't have dates smaller than 2 to the minus 53 or 2 to the 53. And then in draft 07, we changed the to be decoy integer so that it is greater than 0. That's a positive integer instead of an unsigned integer. And finally, Martin pointed out that some holders might not have a clock, and if they don't, they're not going to be able to use an IAT. And so we said use a CTI. You can use a CTI instead of an IAT. All right. Here's an example of decoys on the left side. So we've got redacted country, France, and then another redacted decoy country. Below that, we've got, and that's in an array. And then below that, we've got a list of redacted claim keys, one of which is a real claim, claim 500, and the other is a decoy claim in a map. On the right-hand side, we've got an example of using clip tag 62 to be a to be decoy tag in a pre-issued claim set. And just above that, we've got tag 58 for redacting a real claim. More precise CDDL. So as you can see, there is a lot of stuff there on the left-hand side. Basically, what this boils down to is that I created a set of safe values and safe keys, a set of issued values and keys, and a set of pre-issued values and keys. And the grammar, it works appropriately depending on whatever context you happen to be in. So if you're using a KBT, you use the safe set. If you're using an issued COT, that's the safe set plus you can put the simple 59 redacted claims key. And if it's pre-issued, you can use safe, or you can use the to be redacted tag or the to be decoy tag. There are no nested tags. Okay. Started some other stuff. We submitted a PR to take a big blob of cumbersome text and turn that into a table. A PR has been done. The issue is not closed because there's still some fine tuning there. Feel free to check out that issue. Now on to our open PRs. So we now have five PRs that are relevant. So these first 4 I did last night. They're pretty small. They're ready for review. We've got an issue 212, which is partially done. It just needs some fine tuning. We've got a PR for 204, which is about rewording the language about nesting. So we could accept this PR, we could reword this PR, we could close this PR. I don't have a strong opinion here, but like I was inclined not to accept it as is. And then there are 4 more issues which I believe are ready to address, but we just need to do. Okay, so this is the easy stuff. I would like to draw your attention to the stuff that we probably should talk about, and that's this slide. So we've got 3 open issues, one related to a terminology about whether we talk about redacted or blinded claims or both. how we deal with nonces, and whether we are going to continue to have this AAD encrypted claims or not. I've got 3 slides on that. I've got slides on each of those 3. We also have 4 other, which are tagged either with, ask the working group or need help needed. But basically, the bottom 2, these are related to wording of 2 sections in the privacy considerations chunk of text. So wording on 16.2 and 16.5. And 1 is related to whether we include this registration for the VCT claim so that we can have parity with SDJOT. The reason it's in there right now is because it's currently registered in JOTS, and I believe it was registered with SDJOT. It is not registered in COTLAND, and if we needed to register it, we would need to have a new working group item all by itself, which only did that. Kind of a pain process-wise just to do this. Your mileage may vary. And then we also have this appendix for RATS terminology. I pinged the RATS list and I said, hey, here's the thing. We could just split it off into a draft in SPICE or RATS. If you guys want to take it as a tiny working group item, here's a document that just says, here's the translation. That's great. Or we can leave it in, or we can just say, well, yeah, we can stick it up on some wiki somewhere. So people will be probably commenting on those. Let's go to the 3 that I have slides for. Okay, currently we use a mixture of both redacted and blinded. So basically, we're mostly using redacted when we're using it as an adjective, and we're using blind or unblind or disclose sometimes when it's a verb. Now we've had a little bit of tension here because redact is a more common term when you're talking about that I redacted something, the fact that something was removed. The dictionary definition is to obscure part of a document for legal or security purposes. That a lot of people understand what that means in the non-technical context. Unfortunately, there is no word for unredact, right? Blind, it has all sorts of connotations, right? But the particular dictionary definition that we would use is to cause to be unable to see. It's common in cryptographic context. It's common in testing context, like a double-blind test for testing medicines. And unfortunately, unblind and unblinded is also a word. Just one other little complicated nuance. We have an early registration for to be redacted. That's not really a big deal. We can still call the tag something, even if we change the term. So this is one of those, what do we want to do? I don't want to necessarily have a bike shed conversation about this, but if people have we should do this because of this principle, I would like to hear what that principle is and why. I've got also examples. So people are looking at the slides. They can go and read through it with redacted, with blinded, see how it reads. See which one reads better. That may be a perfectly reasonable choice, is to just do it based on how it sounds. So this is 80% of the places where it's used. All right. Anybody want to dive in and discuss any of this stuff related to blinded versus redacted?
There's a bunch of good conversation in the chat, which I think is probably captures people's feeling accurately.
Okay. Anyone want to do you want to summarize that, or?
My read is that it was pretty heavily toward redact and some sort of something like disclose or reveal for the opposite, or unredact is also a word.
Great. Okay.
I will also raise my comment here that I made, which is like, surely the SD-JOT spec has some words for this, and maybe we should just do whatever they did.
What a simple solution, assuming they did something consistent. So yeah, good idea. I'll take that as an action. Brian, do you remember which words?
He said we did have words.
There are words.
Not sure they're consistent. Redacted. Okay, thanks, Justin. All right, moving on. Nonces for freshness. This is the actual text that Martin wrote in his issue. It's basically, what's the freshness? Is the freshness from the holder? Is the freshness from the perspective of the verifier? Sometimes you need both. There's kind of a lot in there. Given the amount of time we have, I just wanted to highlight this as, if you think you have an opinion about this, go read the issue, go read the text that it refers to, and then please chime in with suggested text. We don't have any suggested text for this right now. All right. Hank.
Yeah, just a quick question. What's wrong with the freshness text? I mean, nonce acquisition is nice. The reference explains it all.
I don't think that it's. I did read through it and I realized that at the very least it is not super clear that.
Okay, maybe it's not clear.
Which is this nonce, which is used to provide freshness on behalf of the holder, and this nonce is, and this audience or nonce is used in order to ensure freshness at the verifier. Right. So we do need to add a little something.
Okay.
How about we just do whatever SD-JOT did? Like the cryptographic concerns are not different between JSON and CBOR. So either SD-JOT is broken, or we should just do what they did.
Well, we have a key binding token that is mandatory in JSON. And we have much more opinionated rules about what we put in our as a result, we have much more opinionated rules about what we put there. SD-JOT basically says, well, kind of do what you want. So I think using what SD-JOT did for the terminology is appropriate. And I think in this case, it is, yes, less appropriate.
I think if there's further conversations on that, let's drop that in the issue or on the list, because I know we're already out of time.
Okay, so I've got one last issue here, which is the encryption. So basically Martin said, why use AAD? Like you could get away with using counter mode encryption instead, or using something with no tags, because AES-GCM, for example, is slow relative to AES counter.
Rowan, if you try and use unauthenticated encryption, I will personally make sure I'm the sector reviewer and thank it then.
So anyway, why we would bother to use the heavier weight encryption, in addition to the fact that the algorithms for it are ubiquitous, we get quick feedback if a decryption succeeds or fails. And we're not just talking about doing a single decryption and then finding a hash. You may have to go and decrypt many claims, even for an honest holder. And then in the nested claims could be, if you have them, they could be in any order. They might be sorted, or they might be, randomized in some way. And so you might have to decrypt several of these in order to then find a top level claim, which then has other claims embedded inside of it, nested inside, and so on. And so being able to find, like, where was the decryption error, if you don't have the right key, that's going to be really challenging. The trade-off there is it's slower.
Okay. Is there more to cover on this one?
The last thing I'm going to say is that we have basically, we could do three things. We could say, we leave this in, and if somebody wants to do more, a different style of faster encryption later or in this document, we can do that. We could do the faster encryption instead of. I'm not in favor of that. The third thing is we could just yank it out altogether. So I do kind of like having it in there, but I would rather that us, if we can't come to consensus, I'd rather that we take it out than we try to, spend a long time arguing on this.
Okay. We've got two people in queue, Richard and Martin.
Still hand.
Old hand? Okay, then just Martin.
Yeah, so I did not suggest that the alternative was possible for speed or performance reasons. Obviously, it is going to be faster if you don't have to have an authentication tag, if you don't have to worry about AAD, which you're not using anyway. But I'm more concerned about the possibility that people look at this and go, this decrypts and the tag validates, therefore there's something of value in the field, where this is a format where the plain text has to match, the hash of the plain text has to match a hash in the COD.
Yep.
And if you don't find that hash,
Then it's garbage.
Then it's garbage. And the AAD has told you something positive that is not actually positive in those cases. And so the suggestion to get rid of the tag was to remove the distraction rather than try to optimize. Obviously, not having a tag means 16 less bytes per disclosure, but whatever. I mean, it seems like everything's bloated in here anyway. So that's not the primary reason to do that.
And if somebody says, do what STJOT does, well, we'll just base 64 everything.
Oh yeah, that's a terrible argument in this case. We have to base 64 at 4 times, is it?
6 times.
6 times. All right. So 1.3
right.
to the power of 4. 6.
No
Okay.
more math. Cool. Is there any other slides, or is that all of them?
I think that's it. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, we want to finish, and we're going to blast call. That's it.
Okay. Everyone, as always, chat on the list. Please create issues, and even better, please create text if you have some ideas. All right, let me see if I can. Okay, yes. How do I make it stop sharing these slides? I say. Please. Hey Martin, how do I make it stop sharing slides so I can switch them? Thank you. Brilliant.
This is Martin.
All
You're
right.
welcome.
All right, Brent, you're up.
Hey, everybody. My name is Brent. Leif and Tim and I have been working on an architecture document, and we would like to see it adopted. Today's agenda is straightforward. We're going to talk about the problem. We're going to talk briefly about the architecture, and then we're going to talk about adoption. The problem is there's too much going on. Every group everywhere is defining little bits of what they see as pieces of this architecture, whether they call it the three-party model or whatever. And we know people don't like that term. Next slide, please. There's just too much happening everywhere without any sort of unifying framework for how all of this fits together. And I don't believe that we, as the authors of this specification, are indicating that should this architecture be published by our little working group, that everyone in the world doing digital identity will now magically adhere to this architecture. But as we are chartered to figure out gaps and fill them, without an architecture, it's going to be difficult for us to say, hey, here's the gaps. Here are all the things that are happening. Here's this architecture that fits them all together, but there's gaps and they need to be filled. We talk about this three-party model like it actually exists, but it don't. It's not really written down or formalized anywhere. Next slide, please. So maybe we can do something about that. Next slide. The architecture does a couple of things. Right now, it records terminology and begins to suggest definitions for these terms. We've got issuer, holder, and verifier, but what about credential manager or presentation mediator or credential store? Credential subject, I think we've heard of. What about presenter? Do we need that in addition to holder? These are conversations that we feel it would benefit this group to have. We've got a set of terminology in the document. We've got definitions that we feel make sense. Should this architecture be adopted, I think this could be a very fruitful and useful conversation for this group to have. Next slide, please. In addition, it describes this issuance and presentation flow to point out the components of the system and how they all work together. Because there's a lot happening and we want to see how it all works together. I thought that there was a picture on this slide. There's the picture. Picture's on the next slide. So this is not anything that anybody's going to get a lot out of right now. I recognize that. This is just to show we have a flow diagram. It's in the document. You should read it. Does this flow make sense for your understanding of the direct presentation? I'm a holder. I can get things issued to me and present them to a verifier use case. Does this have components on it that make sense? Does this flow, is this missing components? If this is a conversation you feel this group would benefit from, let's adopt this document and work on this flow diagram together. Next slide, please. So the ultimate goal is, once we have this architecture document adopted, we can begin describing this system in a way to see if the properties that we feel it needs are present. We can see where the gaps are. We can see whether, okay, is this thing going to scale? Does it have the efficiency things that certain groups will need? Or where would those components be located in the document anyway? Without a combined and unified view of what we're working on, I don't think that we're going to be able to succeed in saying we've done the thing that we were working on. Next slide, please. So our recommendation to the group is that we adopt this architecture document and use it as a starting point to come to some unified notion of what it is we're doing here. Next slide. At this point, we feel the draft is pretty well formed. We have had review. We believe it is ready for adoption. There are a lot of conversations yet to have. We hope that we can adopt it and have those conversations. My opinion is that it should be on the RFC track, but that's something that this group should decide.
Okay. Opening up the queue. Do folks have thoughts, comments, opinions, questions? Hank.
Sorry, it took me like a minute to do half a meter. Yeah, this is Hank. I fully commit to repair your diagram. This is a promise. Also, I don't understand the last comment. This should be an RFC. Yes, this should not retain in the ID state. What was your question? Is it standards track or informational? Or?
Yeah, I think it should be published as an RFC, not remain this informational thing that just kind of floats and never actually.
Both are RFCs, so it's a standards track RFC. Get it. So
yeah.
Thank you. Then I'm fine.
Okay. Rohan?
can get it.
Oh,
Oh, yours.
I'm so sorry. I'm lost in space. Sorry, blanked out.
Yeah, good.
Okay, Grace.
Okay, I'm going to say words and hopefully they'll make sense because I'm a bit of a newbie. I'm Grace from the Decentralized Identity Foundation. So one of the terminologies that I'm finding quite confusing is the whole issue of registries, which is sort of nominally just mentioned there, like where are the formats saved and whether a registry is a registry that has the issuers or whether it's a registry that has the formats that you need to refer to read the things. So that's actually one of the parts of terminology that I didn't see in this and that I personally am finding very confusing in this industry of SSI. So thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, we're not, as authors, claiming that the terminology that exists in the document today is complete. We're saying it's sufficient to begin.
Okay.
Remember,
Rohan.
maybe if we're going to have a bunch of terminology like mediator and presenter and stuff like that, maybe this would be a good place for the RATS appendix, the current appendix E from SDCOT.
Having not read it yet, I can't commit to bringing it in, but I had that same thought when you mentioned that there was terminology that might need to end up somewhere.
Brian.
I tried baiting Ori in the chat, but he wouldn't take it, so I'm going to come up here and do it. I think you need to add inner verifier and inner chain of verifiers to the list of things, because apparently there's a use case for that, which doesn't make any sense to me at all, and I think should burn in a fire. But if we're going to be building things to support these wacky use cases, then we should write them down in the use cases document. Or architecture, or I don't know, they're the same thing, I guess. I don't know. This is architecture, actually.
There is also a use cases document that we could build on if you want to add use cases there.
Terminology. Anyway, the baiting worked. Ori's right behind me.
Indeed, I'm Maurice Steele. The baiting did work. I don't think we need to define inner verifier because it's already a thing that's RATS has with wisdom defined. And so we just need to take that RATS terminology section and give it to Brent. We're good. That's it.
All right. Which takes us to the end of time. The end of time. The end of the world as we know it. That said, so we've had this document come back a few times to look at it. Martin, I'm looking at you. I don't see any problem with posting to the list about starting a working group adoption call. No problem. Excellent. Okay. I will start that call on the list then. If folks have questions, comments, or concerns, that will be a fantastic opportunity to chime in.
Thank you, Chairs.
Great. Thank you. All right. Now, if I do. Wes, how did you do that? Wait, is it this button here? Yes. Haha. I figured it out. Go me. All right. We did that one. We did that one. We did that one. Then we've got just a few minutes for traceability claims. And I believe I saw Mike in the room. I believe this is going to be a quick call for adoption on this one. We got about 5 minutes to discuss.
Hello, this is Mike. Welcome, both here in the room and elsewhere. So let's talk about the traceability claims draft. The clicker is not going. There we go. So what is it? The mission hasn't changed. It defines claims for traceability of physical goods across supply chains. This is something that people in logistics and shipping and customs enforcement and all kinds of things in the real world need every day. This was written by my friend Mike Prorock, who is a CEO of a company in that space. So this is informed by actual needs. Next. All right, so we held a call for adoption. Thank you, chairs. The adoption result, as summarized by Heather, was there is solid support for this draft, but Rohan, who we've seen before, raises some good points that the chairs agree with. We'd like to see one or more round that provides the group with a bit more guidance on the scope and direction of the draft. We can also discuss further at IETF 125. This is where we meet our heroes. So, what did Rohan say? The main thing that Rohan said is, how will we know when we're done? That's always a good meta question about any draft, but it's particularly applicable to this one, this we'll get into. So I'd suggested another standard meta answer that once we see evidence of multiple interoperable implementations, that's a signal that we're approaching done. And Ori, who's in the room and about to not be an AD, expressed a desire to have people from multiple organizations who are experts in the space work on the draft. This is a standard Ecker comment, like, do you have a bunch of people wanting to work on it? If so, go. If not, well, think about it. So one of the open questions is, who else besides myself and a few others from Trade Verified want to work on the draft? Now, I've had a side comment. Let me hold you for just a minute, Hank, because I'm almost done. Rohan and I continued to talk about the draft and things you might want from the draft. And he's actually worked in shipping at one point and logistics. So there's many different document types these kinds of claims and more such claims could be applicable to. You've heard of some of them: waybills, packing lists, customs declarations, manifests, certificate of origin. Next. So there's many shipping and trade practices that we could draw from. Standard quantities, there's standards for hazardous material codes, harmonized system numbers, international commercial terms, sector-specific standards for medical, agricultural, and I could go on. But this all goes back to the how will we know when we're done question, because there's many things we could do. There's a whole lot more we could do. But my view is what we should actually do should be informed by the needs of the parties who want to implement. So actually, rather than asking for adoption right now, I want to ask for participation. And if we have adequate participation and interest in doing this draft, then we should adopt it. Hank, you're at the mic.
Well, Wes is in queue before him.
Oh, okay.
So
Excuse
it's
me.
Wes, then, no worry, Wes, then Hank, then Karsten.
Thanks. So I am the chair. I don't normally follow SPICE, so it's interesting this came up, and I'm going to blame Ori here in a second for not catching the duplication. I'm the chair of the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol Group, which has discussed bill of lading since it started 3 years ago. Right now, it's not on their charter, but they've wanted to do it. They just have too many other things to get done first. So there's a lot of interest in that group that would probably be willing to help. And specifically, there really needs to be probably an interoperable, definition for how both sets of protocols can sort of pass the same type of structure around. So food for thought, and Ori should have known that we were thinking about it over there as well. But
Fine, I can make a note to the secure asset transfer working group. I'll join yet another mailing list.
All right, Karsten.
Slow unmuting today. Thank you. So I have the same question as Wes, just with respect to a different working group, which is SCIT. So SCIT is in the business of providing something that could be called traceability. So I'm wondering whether this shouldn't be discussed in SCIT.
I can bring it to their attention too.
I think that would be good.
Okay, thank you, Karsten.
Okay,
Hank?
and last one in queue is Hank, and then we have to move on.
Yeah, hi, this is Hank. As we've run into this problem multiple times as Roman is a very attentive IETF chair, we have to make sure if we adopt this here, it's in the charter scope. Because now 2 documents that I'm involved in have been stopped by that, and yeah, so we don't want to have that problem. So I would say, yeah, working on the document itself is really nice, especially with the context that SCIT also, I think, once upon a time planned to recharter to hardware, and these are definitely like claims like that. But also they're subjects, so
Okay, thank you all.
Great. Thanks very much for the conversation, everybody. All right, so that was, yes, confirmed. That was past conversations. Now we've got some fun things about future conversations. Who is this being presented in the room? Yes, it is.
Yuning, can you see me and hear me?
Yep, can see you and hear you
Okay,
just fine.
thank you. All right. Thanks. So hello, I'm Yuning. Today on behalf of my colleagues to present the public key service provider for verification in multiple issuers and multiple verifying environment. Because this is a new document, so I spent some time to explain the motivation behind it and the architecture we developed. So the key problem we identified is that so in today's digital credential ecosystems, the verifiers need to get the public keys to be able to verify or validate the signatures, but in practice, the number of issuers could be large and dynamic. And also the keys could rotate or it could be revoked in time. And also the deployments could span across multiple domains. So this creates a challenge that verifiers often could not reliably collect the correct public keys to be able to validate the signature. So if we look closely, sorry, okay.
Yeah, I don't think the clicker works. I'm
now it
controlling the
works.
slides, so just let.
Thank you.
No, that was me. Let me know when you need it changed.
Oh, okay. So
You
if we
need to
look
give
closely,
the slides to the clicker. Tell the clicker that it's their slides.
Yes, if I
yeah.
knew how to do that. There we go. I see.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I think, yeah, I get hold of it. Thanks. So if we look at closely at the current approaches, we could categorize them into like 3 categories. So the first is that the verifiers would maintain local trust stores where administrators manually provision issuer certifications and keys. And second could be that there would be like a mutually trusted third party that would act as a route to bridge trust between different issuers, or the issuers would establish direct trust by mutually signing and certifying each other's public keys. But there are limitations of those current approaches. First is that a manual configuration does not scale well in constrained or dynamic environments. It's also difficult to manage frequent key rotations and revocations. And in the case of mutually trusted third party that acts as the root, such common trust anchor may not match real-world trust relationships across domains. And also cross-certification becomes complex in many-to-many settings too. If we summarize it, we could say that existing solutions have high operational complexity and low adaptability in complex and multi-administrative domain environments. So what we bring here, we call it PKSP, that is short for Public Key Service Provider. So the solution is straightforward if you look at the right side. So the issuers would register their public keys onto this PKSP module, and verifiers will query for the public keys on demand. So by doing so, we kind of convert this public key distribution problem to a on-demand and query-based lookup problem. And if we compare with the traditional approach on the left side, so using traditional approaches, the issuers need to establish pairwise mutual relationship, and if we do so, the public key updates and revocations would bring or increase high maintenance overhead. Yeah, and looking at further at our PKSP architecture, so the functions are very simple. So the PKSP would accept public key registration from issuers. It stores registered public keys in a long-temporable manner, and it returns the corresponding public keys when it receives these verified queries. And such queries usually could use the identification information from the token, such as the issuer identifier, for example, the issuer field, and response metadata often include the public key, the expiration time, and the key type. The registration flow is pretty simple. So it includes the issuer submission, the validation by the PKSP, and the response either is success or it's rejection. And once the registration is completed, it's ready for the verified queries. And the verification flow is also simple that we could categorize into 5 steps. So the verifier receives the token from the holder. The verifier identifies the issuer from the token and the request for public key from the PKSP. The PKSP first authenticates the verifier and returns the requested public key with the relevant metadata. The verifier uses the retrieved key to validate the signature, and it will generate the outcomes, either a success or it would be a failure. So in doing so, the PKSP also reduce the dependencies between potential the issuer pairwise relationships. So to summarize, the PKSP contributes with an optional architecture for issuer public key registration and verification in multi-domain environments. So it supports the registration flow and also the verification flow. So it reduces operational complexity. We also have a permission distributed ledger as one enabling technology direction. So in terms of future work, this is actually my first IETF. So I will appreciate directions on how we could best contribute to the working group. Should we ask for reviewers' comments now so we can, modify the draft? And when is the most appropriate time for us for adoption? That's also the question I received from the chair. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, but we have 2 people in queue. Rohan, you go first.
Hi. I wanted to understand one thing that was sort of a basic question I didn't understand from the draft or the presentation, is the idea that the reason you have all these keys is because you have sort of a stack of different credentials, some of which, some are from issuer A, B, C, D, E, or that you have a single credential where you have claims from different issuers, or maybe even nested credentials.
So in our design, it would be preferably be the second architecture, but it also supports the first one. So meaning that multiple issuers could register their public keys onto the PKSP module.
Okay, and then in the nested case, would presumably, like, if I had issuer, the innermost issuer for something, that the next issuer enclosing that, wouldn't we want that issuer to be able to trust the first issuer?
So if I understand correctly, you're talking about the trust relationship between the two issuers. So that's actually usually the problem in traditional solutions, because you need to kind of build like pair-wide trust relationships. But here, because in our design, the issuers, they trust the PKSP module. So you don't really need to build the trust relationship between other issuers. You build the relationship between the issuers and the PKSP module.
Yeah, I guess all I was saying is that I might not, let's say that I had 5 levels deep, that the outermost issuer might not know anything about the innermost one, but that if, I've got my innermost one and then my next innermost one, that somebody who has an enclosed claim always at least trusts the one that's just inside. I don't know.
So what I'm gonna suggest is, and this will answer a question that you had, Yuning. I think what we want now is some review, just encourage people to review the draft and offer feedback. I don't think we're ready for any kind of working group adoption call, but I think there's some good questions and some good feedback that you can get on the list. Mike, I think you have, if you have a quick comment or question.
Hi. Yeah, I'm looking at this, and the PKSP looks like a very monolithic black box. And I was expecting when I went to look at the draft, there would be some description of what was going on inside that black box, and there wasn't anything there. So it's either a single point of failure, or there's a lot more architecture on the components to make up the PKSP. So that would be where I would start looking before you actually start talking about the stuff around it. I don't know how you build this thing. You can't have a single server and make this work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take
yeah.
that as feedback. I don't think you'll have time to actually jump in and answer it, unfortunately. But that's the kind of answer that you will also get on the list, I think, when people review it and they'll ask you, well, what does this do and how and why? And you might want to consider updating the document for that.
Yeah, definitely. We can move communication offline. Yeah, thank you.
Just move it to the list. Doesn't have to be entirely offline. All right, thanks. Thanks very much. We are just about out of time, which is incredibly unfortunate because we've got one more new draft that we wanted to cover. And I want to actually stop with the clicker. Yes, so that I can then stop with this. Yes, good heavens, this is a lot of buttons. All right, we're not going to be able to spend much time on this one, but I just wanted to get this in front of the room to see that this is some new work that is of interest that someone wants to bring to us for discussion. So we only have 2 minutes left. I don't think that's quite enough time to really go through much.
Yeah, I can
do you want
probably
to give like the short version of why should people read and review this draft?
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. So to set the stage in modern service-to-service AI agentic workflows, such as those using the Model Context Protocol, A2A agent protocol, a workload frequently receives a token, does some work, and then exchanges the token to call the next hop. Once a request moves through multiple actors, we often lose a trustworthy record of who actually acted. So this proposal basically is designed to prove the provenance of the delegation chain across actors with cryptographic evidence, building upon RFC 8693 OAuth token exchange protocol. That is the gist of it. So actually, if you go to the next slide, and next slide, Heather, this actually cements this whole chain. So everybody who has participated can be provably put on a cryptographic ledger that's built in a very lightweight way. And privacy-wise, if you go to the next slide, the key fields are exposed. The ACHP is the profile. We introduced 5 profiles. And the ACH is actor chain, the chain of actors. And the last thing that you see, ACHC, is the cryptographic payload that cements each and every handshake. That is a kind of the cumulative hash chain that is built up. So, and then if you go to the next slide, the 5 profiles. So broadly, right, at this profile, there are 2. You can trust the authorization server and let the authorization server selectively disclose various actors per policy. Everybody trusts the authorization server. Alternately, the second broad set of profiles, we completely cryptographically cement all these things, so we don't need to trust the authorization server. And if you go to the next slide, that is the final slide. All the rest of them are detailed slides. 5 different profiles and with varying disclosures. If you look at the very last profile, you get all the cryptographic handshakes cemented. So in a agency part of the agentic chain is the key thing, right? So it can decide on the plan and decide to contact all kinds of actors. Quickly, you have a large chain. In the chain, right, you can have a cryptographic assurance about who all participated without ever disclosing any of the actors involved. So like at various profiles, varying degrees of disclosures and the 2 broad buckets of trust. If one trusts the authorization server in a single domain, things become much more easier and the extension becomes easier. And with the commitment, it's not much more. You just add the cryptographic ACHC parameter and everything works. That's the gist of it, Heather. And all the rest of the slides are kind of details.
So I encourage folks to check out the full slide deck. Prasad, for your consideration, and this is in the chat, this feels more like something that would go in OAuth or Whimsy. I'm not quite sure how it fits us here. So that may be something you want to post to the list, why you think that this is the right home for it, as opposed to one of those other groups.
Yeah, we will follow up on that, Heather.
Great. All right. Thank you all very much for your time and attention, wherever you are in the world today. And good luck with the rest of the IETF meeting.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.